Hi guys, I'm Moin Roberts-Islam. I am the Technology Development Manager at the Fashion Innovation Agency at London College of Fashion. And today we're going to be talking about digital fashion and how it's many different guises and how it relates to sustainability in fashion. And also we'll be touching on the carbon footprint of digital fashion as well. I'm going to give you a brief whistle-stop tour of digital fashion as we see it at the Fashion Innovation Agency, and also talk about the future of digital fashion. And then we'll be speaking to our three Sarabande artists. We have Yoav Hadari, we have Leo Carlton, and we have the team from Ouroboros, Paula and Alyssa as well. So we'll be hearing from each of them individually. They are working in digital fashion and physical fashion and combining the two. So it'd be great to kind of hear how they're doing that momentarily. But as I say, I will be starting off with a presentation, which would just be bringing up now. And I'll just take you through the work we've been doing at the Fashion Innovation Agency. Just wait till that comes up on screen. Okay. Just bear with us while we get to the right slide. Okay. So as I say, I'm Moin Roberts-Islam. I work at the Fashion Innovation Agency at London College of Fashion. And we have a lovely remit from the college, which allows us to use emerging technologies to look at how emerging technologies can disrupt practices in the fashion and retail industry. As it says there, we have an extensive network within both fashion and technology, and we aim to close the gap between the industries and accelerate the pace of change within fashion. The way that we do that is we put together proof of concept collaborations that demonstrate technologies that are potentially 3 to 5 years out from being used and just be a guiding light to the industry, show what's possible when the two industries combine. So what are we doing in digital fashion? I'm just going to start off by talking about digital only fashion, first of all. Just to introduce you to digital fashion for those of you who may not be as familiar. So this is a project we ran with a designer called Sadie Clayton. She had a very well-received graduate collection, which a lot of editors got in touch and said, please let us shoot your collection for our magazine. She was contacted, unfortunately, by a bogus editor from Days magazine and lost £14,000 worth of her collection. And never got it back. So we heard about this and we worked with her and a digital fashion house called The Fabricant to recreate her hero piece from that collection, which is this bomber jacket here. And as you can see, it looks, moves and behaves just like the real thing. It looks, moves and behaves like the real thing. And the only thing you can't do is basically touch it. And if you wanted to do that, you could obviously touch a swatch from the garment itself. One thing to remember with physical garments is that 80 to 90% of the carbon footprint of a garment comes within the design and manufacture phase of the garment. So before it even gets to stores, or often before it even gets back to the brand. And the carbon footprint of a digital only garment such as this one equates to 3% of the carbon footprint of the physical equivalent. And digital design in this way allows designers to market and sell their garments, sometimes even before they've been created. Sorry, one second. Okay, and now I'm just going to move on to physical to digital. So obviously not everyone wants to sell digital only garments. A lot of people are selling physical garments as well. So I'm just going to talk about how that can be done. Bear with us for a moment. Okay, so this is a photogrammetry rig. So a photogrammetry rig is a collection of high definition cameras all placed at different angles around an object. And you can use a nice bit of software to stitch together those photos and create a photorealistic output, which is a digital asset representing that object that you've placed in there. So I'm just going to show you an example of something that we've scanned previously in a photogrammetry rig. This is a mulberry bag, and as you can see, you can look at the textures and the fastenings and so on, and it all looks very photorealistic, very kind of playable with. And you can then use assets like this to, again, market the product without having to ship it around the world. So it has kind of good sustainability benefits there on that sort of digital side of things. However, a photogrammetry rig is very expensive. It's not necessarily very accessible to brands and so on. So what are other ways of doing that? So everyone has a mobile phone in their pocket. Everyone has access to that. So what if you could do that same process through a mobile phone? So that's a project that we worked on last year during lockdown with Microsoft and a company based out of Austria called Reactive Reality. And we scanned two people, myself and my colleague Lisa, and we scanned items from our own wardrobes as well. And we created something called a digital human stylist. I'm just going to play a little video now that gives you a bit more information, and I'll talk about it at the end.
Our vision for the future is to see how consumers can interact with their wardrobe in a new way.
The digital human stylist is a digital replica of a human being.
It is your smart assistant who can make intelligent recommendations on what to wear.
You'll understand what's in your wardrobe, what's in your calendar, where you're going, who you're going to meet.
The digital human stylist is powered by Microsoft AI and natural language processing, which allows that interaction to just feel completely natural.
We define the digital human stylist.
Oh. Okay, no worries. We'll just leave that there. But basically, the project was aimed at utilizing the garments existing in your wardrobe. So rather than going out and buying new things, the stylist would interact with your calendar, look at things like business meetings coming up, lunch with friends, and it would suggest outfit combinations that maybe you haven't worn recently and try and get you to use the kind of full breadth of your wardrobe. And then if you did need a new garment, it could link out to external websites to help you to do that. Sorry, I'm just going to skip that now. So moving on to the next project here. This is a project that we did with a company called Hollow Me, and we did it at London College of Fashion at the MA Women's Wear Catwalk Show. And we had models shot against a green screen, and using computer vision, we were able to cut out the background and then broadcast those models live in augmented reality to mobile phones around the world. You can see footage here from Seattle and from London. We had a couple of other phones around the world, and this was being broadcast live on a 4G network. You didn't need anything more special than the green screen, high definition camera and your mobile phone to experience that. And then we use that same technology. Sorry, hold on. We use that same technology with JW Anderson. So they wanted to, oh, sorry, hang on. Just lost that slide, bear with me. Okay. So as you can see here, we use the same technology shot in front of a green screen. And what they wanted to do at JW Anderson is to wholesale to buyers. But obviously during lockdown, they weren't able to necessarily easily fly the collection out to buyers. And likewise, they couldn't fly buyers to the collection. And so they wanted to find a way to mitigate that whole transport process and the associated carbon footprint. And so they used this green screen technology to showcase their garments to the buyers. And they were able to create sales through that route and kind of credibly make their wholesale through that route. Okay, sorry, it's just not clicking. Okay, and now I'm going to talk to you about immersive digital fashion. And so this is much more focused on storytelling, brand storytelling. So this is a project that we ran in February 2018. During London Fashion Week for a designer called Stephen Tai. Stephen is from Macau, and we wanted to reflect the Macau street scene in the presentation. So ordinarily to recreate that, you would have to use a lot of props or fly people out there. And again, there's a huge carbon footprint associated with that, but we wanted to avoid that. So we used augmented reality in real time to augment the environment. And also, if you look here, we have a motion capture artist who is driving the performance of a digital model on stage. So this was a model present in augmented reality amongst the physical models, and she was driving that performance in real time. So as well as the sustainability benefits in terms of props and so on needed for the presentation itself, we also think this leans towards the future of fashion, certainly future of digital fashion, where you can bring digital assets into the physical, into the real world around us. And I'm going to just talk more about that now. This is another project that we did with Pangaea, lovely sustainable brand who focus on material science. And what they did is they created an immersive experience in collaboration with this company, Anam XR, who are good friends of ours. And they were able to, again, digitally recreate their collections and create this environment so that you had a background to this flower down collection. So the idea is that it keeps you extra warm, and they took us to Antarctica to kind of demonstrate that. And ordinarily when brands showcase their sustainability messaging, it's often quite flat, 2D, lots of text, or sometimes videos. This allowed you to kind of view that content in an interactive and organic format and explore the environment and find out more at your own pace. Okay, sorry. Where is digital fashion going next? Okay, so we believe that digital fashion allows us to go towards a completely new fashion ecosystem, one where clothing does not need to be physical to be real. So I'm just going to end on this last example here. So this is, oops, sorry, bear with me. Okay, so this is something that Burberry produced for us in December of 2019, and it's a digital puffer jacket. And if it were to pause just on the digital jacket, it would just look like it's a photo of me wearing a digital puffer jacket. It's photoreal, it's kind of lit contextually for the environment. But obviously the glitch shows you that it is augmented onto me. Now our vision for the future of fashion is that fashion will be augmented in this way with digital assets overlaid onto our physical garments, not just in still images, not just in moving images, but in real life. We'll be wearing augmented reality glasses, looking at each other with digital fashion overlaid onto our physical bodies. So, oops. So that's it from me. That's the Fashion Innovation Agency. That's our website there. And I've cheekily put my Instagram on there. Please do give us a look. And we will now be moving on to the designers. So I'm just going to hand over to Yoav, who is going to present his work. And then we're going to have some quick questions just after that, and then speak to the rest of the designers.
Thank you, Maureen. I'll share my screen. Can you hear me? So, hi, my name is Yoav Adari. I'm a women's wear fashion designer, and I'm the scholar at currently doing my MA studies in women's wear fashion at CSM. And simultaneously, I'm working on these projects that are a part of my studies, as well as going into the thesis collection that I'm working on. Just quickly about my background. So I come from physical garments, women's wear, working for Thom Browne after graduating my BA in women's wear at Shankar College, Israel. I moved to New York to work on the women's runway collections at Thom Browne, where I worked on very textural couture level pieces with very intricate techniques of fabric manipulations. And last year, when I started working on independent projects for myself, I was actually sent back to my days as a gamer. Growing up, I used to play games like fantasy games, MMORPG games, like World of Warcraft and Diablo by Blizzard. And when I wanted to start creating a look or independent work for myself, the challenge was thinking, how can I create a high fantasy scenario and clothes in a way that will not cost me a big budget or require me to have a big team, as well as thinking of the ecological implications and carbon footprint of making. But for me as a small designer, setting up my own path, it's also about how can I transcend some challenges as an independent designer who's just starting his way. So I worked on this VR presentation of this look, which I actually have video to show you guys very quickly. So it was creating a space that was inspired by a experience of meditation and really wanting to bring a sense of visual complexity that is inspired by a visit of mine in upstate New York and spending a day at the river. I wanted to create garments that reflect the environment that they're around. So for me, it was also a way to play with something very unrealistic that I'd be able to achieve with real clothes. Kind of looking at the next step of techniques with actual embroidery. So this is all done by hand with pieces of fabric that are dead stock, and the sequins are cut from recycled plastics. So thinking of ways to sort of implement a balance between the physical and the digital, and thinking of ways to create interesting looks that maybe in reality would be a bit more challenging, like using these hair swatches that almost look like a bloom over the braids. And really just thinking about accessories and how you could use, working on problem solving, how you could possibly create accessories that you could 3D print at home or in pieces and send them to the client and almost like put it together like an IKEA object or a Kinder Egg toy. So thinking of new ways to reach clients in a way that's creative as well. And my latest project, I was working on creating a demo level for a fashion video game, wanting to go a bit deeper into the experience of gaming that I'm very familiar with, spending many like years playing games. For me, it was about creating worlds and giving a space for the vision of the brand to exist and unfold. So the same way you have a store, a showroom, a presentation, be it online or real, for me, it was more thinking how you could create something like that, but invite the viewer to not just come and be immersed in this environment, but also be an active part of the story and go through a level. Just creatively I went to the desert because I'm from Israel, and for us the desert is in the backyard. So I used to spend many days hiking in the desert, and there's something about the desert that is timeless. And I was very interested in ancient societies and cultures that lived around where I grew up. So there's some traces of ancient Egyptians and also a lot of Nabatean cultures. So really thinking of looking at our society the same way we look now at ancient cultures, and bringing that into a fantasy world as a tool to really reflect on things that are happening rather than trying to escape the world that we're living in and the real issues that are occurring. So to that extent, it was important to me while designing the game and the environment and the garments to really showcase or talk about those issues. So for example, creating levels that are inspired by the most recent discoveries about certain information that is to do with pollution, especially in the ocean, like the floating garbage patch in the Atlantic Ocean. So thinking of ways to sort of represent that in the game in a way that is fantastical, and to bring it into the everyday experience or to raise awareness to them, rather than just playing a game to sort of disconnect from the world, playing the game to come into and understand and think about these issues that we're facing. So I'm just sharing this video to kind of show a bit of the gameplay. And so the game is designed, and there's 4 levels. Each level is split up by, the idea is that the accessories and clothes of the garments of the collection and the look are they're scattered at the end of the level. So for example, this is a sigil that represents the first item. And then when you pick it up, you go to the next environment. And the idea is that it's not only accessories, but also they have abilities and they affect the gameplay. So for example, these shoes, once you activate them, they give the player the ability to walk fast over sand and jump as well. So for me, it was really important to take elements from gaming and from the game lingo, which is gear, which is referring to equipment that you have. So what you wear is not just visual, it's also part of the mechanics of the game, part of the story of the game, and part of what you do. So for me, that was something that I really wanted to focus on, creating the environment in the world. So there's 4 different levels, and when you go through them, they're each inspired by different parts. And I just want to go to show you guys the look in detail. So this is some of the art and collages and the way I work to develop the game and doing concept art for the game levels. And generally thinking about gaming and a way to release clothes or content through gaming, using the same sort of systems that gaming uses, like patches, downloads. So it really liberates the need to follow a certain schedule or needing to cater to a certain relationship with certain buyers and more kind of working independently, releasing work and content and products as you see fit through patches, updates, downloads, etc. And just kind of moving through to the character that you're playing. So developing this character was actually really fun and interesting because I haven't quite designed a person before. And when you go to design a game, the character, what it looks like, what it feels like really matters a lot. So I developed this non-binary or non-gender specific character named Julie. And this is a bit of the process of how we built the character and kind of like really choosing characteristics and playing with the facial features. And then the look was inspired by sarcophag and ancient Egyptian sarcophag and the idea of this vessel that is part of your body. So the whole dress is basically part of the hair of this character, which you can see a bit better here. But I also want to show you, if you go to the website, which is yhadari.com, you can find the video that I shared. You can also find a link to download the game demo. But I did want to show you guys. So this is a bit of it's a 3D rendering and the model of this character. Because the game is still in development, we didn't quite have the time. It's not, it's in demo stage. So the full dress, I just wanted to show it in detail, where you can see it's basically all there and the hair is sort of dyed. So doing something like this in reality would be near impossible. And for me, the idea behind it is to think about almost like the next stage in humanity where we, sorry about this. The next stage in humanity where we thinking about how humans could evolve.
Okay, so we'll just bring up Leo's presentation now, and then we'll come through his questions first, and then maybe we'll try and circle back to Yoav in a moment. Please bear with us while we try and sort this out.
Hello.
Hey Leo, how you doing?
Hi everyone. Okay, so I am going to start by showing a teaser of what I'm putting out into the world imminently. So here goes. Oh. So there we go.
Okay, great. So Leo, I'll just go back to that first question, if that's okay then. So you're trained as a milliner by profession, and how have you come to embrace digital processes from a background that's so firmly based in physical processes?
Well, I graduated from Cordwainers in 2014, where I was doing a bag making course, an accessory design course. And I wasn't so enamored by just working in leather the whole time. And I really wanted to explore new materials. So my graduate collection was 3D printed in polyamide because I was interested in fashion artifacts and the fact that I could do something or aim to do something kinetic by printing with ball joints in the digital file so it could print with movable parts. And then when I left Sarabande, which I was there the 2 years after I'd graduated, I was in a studio with some animators and digital people working digital, and that's where I was just exploring virtual reality, and yeah, it just allowed me. I just wanted to develop outside of the traditional craft because there are a lot of rules within the industry, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And what has working in VR brought out in your practice?
It's definitely, I mean, to start with, it actually it makes me feel quite sick after half an hour. So starting from that, having a 30-minute time frame every day, it just allows me to be really autonomous and it's great. I can just keep idea generating. So now I have a bank of many shapes that I could revisit. I mean, for space as well, when I was doing the traditional work. Yeah, and essentially it also allowed me to translate it to 3D printing. And as you can see with these technical difficulties, I'm not great with it, but I found all of this really intuitive to just sculpt and produce. And it kind of opened up the world of, I was going beyond headwear at that point. It was more product design. Yeah, product design and sculpture at that point.
Great. And when we spoke kind of offline, you spoke about how working digitally has helped your collaborative process and also how helped you to create more bespoke pieces. Can you just talk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So on this slide here is an example of how I would work with a client or how a client could send. So this is using a capture app on your phone. Maybe some of you have used it, but you just move it around your face. And then I can work with a scan from that. I mean, it's great for social distancing as well. And then from this scan, I was able to do. Yeah, so as an example, you use capture, you move it around the space or an object. I mean, I even go out and you can do it on most objects. But with that face scan, you can see I made a mask that is bespoke, like it fits just to me. So essentially, it opens up a world of bespoke. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Leo. And another thing we've spoken about before is that you are looking to develop your own 3D printing filaments. And also you spoke about using mycelium. So can you talk about that and the aspirations for the future of your brand?
Okay, so I'm actually not based in London anymore. I'm on my father's farm in Oxfordshire, where I have my workshop, and there is somewhat of a generational pressure of what I can bring to the farm, and I've always been interested in what the biomaterial, of what I could do with biomaterials. So the future of the brand, like my main aim is to grow and create my own filaments so that I can have a circular business from that, a self-sustaining business. And with, for example, with the mycelium, that also, there's the biomaterial side of things, but it also crosses into, you know, edible mushrooms and also the herbalism side of things where people use powders for like cognitive health. So my aim is to just try and keep working with local substrates, and hopefully I can eventually develop my own filament to use in the process.
Great. Thanks, Leah. And then finally, what are your thoughts on your work being described as biodegradable and carbon neutral?
Well, I think carbon neutral, it's a difficult one because at the moment I still get sent the filaments. The companies say everything is completely biodegradable and compostable. But I mean, me using the printers as well, I don't think it's entirely carbon neutral yet. For example, the PLA in this slide here of the headpieces that I use, the PLA, the degradation requires microbes, heat, and moisture. So burying it at depth in soil, but even then optimal breakdown requires a temperature of 60 degrees. Mm-hmm. So I think there are other implications of using these materials, but the positive side of that is I can actually use the PLA fermented plant starch prints and the support material that comes from the printer. It can be ground down, heated, and reformed into reusable 3D printer filament, so it can go back into the process. The flax material that I use, that is completely compostable. Yeah, I just think I just want to be as transparent as possible with it, because I think ultimately this project, I want it to be my life project, and I think hopefully it can educate people in this realm of things, in the bioprinting world. Just want to be transparent about it, hopefully develop, and as it goes on to hopefully reach that goal.
Great. Thanks, Leo. Okay, I think we are going to now move to the team from Ouroboros. So I'm just going to hand over to Paula and Alyssa to present their work, and then we'll have some questions just after that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So we're Ouroboros. I'm Paula. I'm the creative director and co-founder. I graduated from Goldsmiths and specify in innovation couture. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Alisa, the second half of Ouroboros, also creative director and co-founder with Paula. I studied fashion communication and promotion at Central St. Martin's, and I was a 2020 graduate. And yeah, so let's begin.
Yeah. So we're here to show a little bit of the vision of the brand and the creativity of everything from the pieces to the entire world that we're building. And what's really important with Ouroboros is that we're using the brand as a reminder that our industry can change, and that not everything has been before. In fact, there's an entire world of limitless expression out there that we're exploring throughout Ouroboros. So the brand, our first innovation is called biomimicry, which is a physical couture garment that grows on the body in real time over 6 to 12 hours. I won't delve too much into this very complex innovation. However, it will be showcased around September, and it also inspired the entire digital collection. Now, biomimicry, the word stands for mimicking of biological life. So looking at the beauty and also temporality of biological life. So, you know, as we see the beauty of a flower, it blossoms and it falls apart. So that cyclical motion is something that inspired the collection, where each piece transforms in nature in terms of color, shape, form, all around you in physical and digital form. So through this, we're evolving the luxury industry into a whole nother level of sci-fi fantasy. And I'll let Alisa continue.
So we wanted to take this concept of biomimicry on a larger scale and also become more accessible to people from remote locations but also being open to all bodies and being inclusive more than ever. So we decided to use digital as one of our means of expression. So this is a new way of expressing yourself, but also design. And this is a video of how you can utilize digital clothing and how you can be part of it. So it's not only to watch, but also you can integrate it within your social life. You can, as you see in simple steps, send an image of yourself and super videos that we would then post digital clothing onto you. So you can really elevate your expression on social media, but also you don't have to be confined by physical materials.
Yeah, and so the entire inspiration for the collection comes from both personal histories, as we've briefly touched upon. You know, we come from international backgrounds, so there's a lot of our personal lives involved within the brand. The pieces themselves integrate parts of, you know, bodily differences. So I have a disability that's invisible exteriorly, and that's woven within the garments. So you'll see, you know, pieces of this lymphatic system throughout the garment that relates personally back to me, as well as, you know, these pieces relating to sci-fi films, from Avatar to game experiences we had with Second Life when we were children. So it's both a very universal and, as I mentioned, personal collection, all based on nature and the incredible, inspiring, transformative nature of it. So here the pieces obviously are elevated within the virtual realm, so using materials that you would never be able to wear physically. So for example, you know, droplets of water, you know, wet silicone or parts of plants, all of these incredible new forms of expression that you can then integrate into social media. So rather than purchasing, you know, a fast fashion garment, you can now wear fire, water, silicone. So there is something that we are proposing here to our generation, is to wear a much more inspirational form of fashion than we've ever had before. You know, I can see someone writing otherworldly, and that's true. You know, never before have we been able to wear these kinds of materials or even enter these kind of worlds before. So we're pushing what fashion means, but also what it means ecologically. You know, our possibilities are now limitless without, you know, the ecological effect of, for example, a t-shirt, which will go into further into the presentation.
Yeah. So what we actually wanted to show, the way you can create everything in digital, from pre-production of designing your designs before they go into physical, but also creating stuff for digital only use, is so different. And you can really also compare the carbon footprint that you create from a plain physical t-shirt that actually doesn't even have any print or any complexities, which even increase more the ecological footprint of it, in comparison to what you can create with digital. And the way we've calculated what we make is very similar to gameplay. It's very similar hardware, similar software, and we've calculated how much we produce carbon footprint from creating our digital pieces. And the only water we use is the one that we drink when we create, so it's very insignificant in that comparison. And on the next slide, we wanted to show you all the possibilities of utilizing this technology. As you make one garment, you can multiply it in so many ways. So it is in limitless stock. It is also gender inclusive and all body inclusive. In a way, it works as made to measure, because we take the time to propose the clothing so it fits correctly to you and to the environment that you supply us with. There's no shipping time, and it's also zero material waste, which is very important, because we can create our own materials. As Paula was saying, it could be anything from fire to water, really your imagination is the limit in this sense. And the shopping experience, as you see, is also very straightforward, where you choose your garment or you can mix and match and create your own full look. And then you supply us image or video of yourself. And that part is very exciting because the consumer can really be part of the story, part of the artwork with the digital clothing, because you can style yourself, you can go out and take a photo shoot, you can really compose the image with us. And then you receive the clothing with the final product via email.
Yeah. And for those people who are already digitally natives like us, you know, a lot of the pieces that we wear are often to potentially wear on social media. I think social media will become more and more part of our lives. Even Zoom calls throughout COVID have shown how important this whole digital sphere is. So if we can elevate that and make that experience even more exciting, that's what it's all about, whilst being able to again, create minimum waste. So I've also dropped in an example for you to try on one of our headpieces that you're seeing here in real time now, to test how this functions, and this headpiece actually grows on you as well.
Yeah, so we launched our first collection with the dress, who is a partner of Farfetch, where you're able to style and dress an avatar of your choice or even a famous supermodel with the physical pieces of the wardrobe, but also with digital clothing. And then you can hit purchase. It's very interesting because already people at large are getting used to digital fashion, and it's situated immediately with clothing of high luxury pieces of other brands. So the complete fashion fantasy is becoming so easy to approach. And then we also have a little introduction to the Ouroboros world that we're creating. And we'll drop a link after the talk as well, where you can be more immersed with the idea of nature tech, where we mimic nature with technology in our designs.
Yeah, so we really take this quite literally 360 approach, where all of our assets, as Elise has mentioned, can move from social media to games, customizing avatars. It really is up to you as a consumer as well. You know, the brand is limitless in its capabilities, and that's what we want to provide to you as well. Yeah. And I think we'd like to mention also the educational possibilities of our brand. We've been giving talks from Harvard to Central St. Martin's, which has been a real pleasure. And we're seeing more and more institutions seeing the capabilities of digital, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Paula, Alyssa. I'm just going to jump straight into some questions. First of all, can you tell us about the name Ouroboros? Where does it come from and how does it relate to your ethos?
Yeah, so it comes from an ancient alchemical sign of Ouroboros, which is the snake biting its own tail. It means continuous renewal, transformation, and rebirth. We actually found through our personal histories and families that we have a snake in our families, and I have some shamanic roots, which it felt really fitting for what we want to do with Ouroboros and our ethos of constantly developing, adapting to the new world, but also being very respectful to the ecology.
Great, thank you. And there's a strong focus on storytelling in your work. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the storytelling aspect of the brand is, I suppose with any brand, very, very important because it allows people to truly immerse themselves. And, you know, with us, we found that there was no brand out there telling the story of what it means to be growing up in the 21st century and seeing all of these technological and scientific advances. So we wanted to be there to guide and be a positive influence and show the amazing capabilities of technology, not in a dystopian way, which we saw a lot, but rather a utopian way, because at the end of the day, technology is just what we do with it as humans. So again, we're here to show that it's such a beautiful tool that we can use for the sake of ecology and the real world around us. And what's really important also is interweaving, the personal stories coming from international backgrounds, bodily differences, having a very diverse team in general, and being able to take these many, stories and putting them together into the clothes, into the 360 world, everything, even to the sound. We design through and through with people's perspectives in order to understand what's going on around us and truly become a mirror to society that we haven't been seeing. So
Great, thank you. Another question, you work both in physical and digital formats. How does this help your brand to embrace accessibility and inclusivity?
So for this, Elisa, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we as artists appreciate so much the craft that we can do in the physical world, and we also care of the production. And being a sustainable brand, we can make physical collections smaller and being sustainable with the choice of materials, but also infusing technology at the very beginning. So designing in mind and pre-producing and digitally experimenting in that way, we're already being more sustainable. And on the physical side, we're able to do the same, but also reach a mass scale of people, which is interesting. For example, when I was growing up in Kazakhstan, it felt really far from me to be part of fashion community and luxury fashion in general. So we utilize the technology in a way that we can involve more people in and be more accessible.
Yeah, and I think, there's two very strong movements occurring right now, which is individualization and digitalization. So, we're able to bring that and embrace that with Ouroboros, and through that also, give back to a young audience, and become accessible. Mostly, as Elisa's already said, it's about coming from a standpoint and understanding it, stories that haven't been spoken about before or even put on a platform that's not performative. So yeah, it's very, very important that we take all aspects into consideration throughout the physical and the digital in order to be accessible and inclusive.
Great, thank you. And then final question from me before we open out to the audience. With all the stories in the press about the huge carbon footprint of NFTs in digital fashion, can you tell us some more about your plans for the future and how you plan to navigate these issues around selling digital content, and which alternatives are you exploring?
Mm-hmm. So again, we think that the entire dialogue around NFTs is really fantastic because it shows how ecologically conscious people are becoming, which hasn't been happening before, specifically with big brands and pollution of physical garments. So it's a beautiful, in a sense, way to see people becoming quite upset as well about the amount of impact and ecological weight these NFTs are having. Now, without going into too much detail, but most of this comes from the minting stage with Ethereum. We, of course, will be doing this in a slightly different way, where we're looking at other coins such as Chia, which has a very nice plant name as well that fits very well with the biomimicry collection, ironically. And yeah, so we will be building our own model of kind of classic and social tokens on a sustainable model.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing that. And I think we're going to open out to questions from the audience now.
First question, and that goes to Yoav. How did you build your digital world? Was it built in Unity?
Was that for me?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't hear it.
I think it was, how did you build your digital world? Was it built in Unity?
Yes, so the digital world is built in Unity, and also, so I've been working with a few developer called Petros Lalos, basically building all of the designs and the environments into the Unity space. And so right now it's built in Unity and is accessible to download, but we're working also on creating an online version, so it's more accessible to everyone.
Great, and this is an open question for anyone on the panel. What's the best way to connect with people in the digital fashion industry? I'd love to meet more designers, this comment says.
Well, I think Instagram is really helpful. There's a lot of platforms like ArtStation, and personally, I really found LinkedIn very helpful. There's a lot of what's the latest digital fashion invention and people involved. So definitely get in there.
Okay, sorry guys, we're having a couple of sound issues here. What have we got next? How long do you think it will take to make virtual digital trading accessible to all?
I feel like it's hard.
Hear any answers? I'm not sure if it's.
Well, I feel like it's already, there are some digital assets you can get on certain games, and like skins like that. But right now, that's the only space I've really seen it.
Yeah, I think one of the issues around virtual digital trading, as it's been put in the question, is that there isn't a one unifying platform for digital assets across a number of different areas, be that gaming or virtual try-on and so on. I think there are a number of people aiming to do that. I think there are a lot of legal issues around that. There's certainly an incentive for the people who are doing it a certain way within games or within virtual try-on, for example, to keep the market to themselves, because that's how they're making money. For them to open that out to everyone and anyone and any digital assets across their platforms is going to take a lot of work on the technical side, but also on the legal side. So that might be something that's a little way off, but who knows, hopefully something will come up in the future. The next question is there any advice for someone coming from a different background, e.g. graphic design or web design, trying to get into digital fashion or arts?
Yeah, I think in terms of people coming into digital fashion, there's so many amazing communities there that welcome everyone, and you can really learn. I mean, there's so many, YouTube tutorials for anyone who wants to go into digital fashion specifically. There's a Clo community. So these programs are very, very accessible. And I think just something I wanted to mention as well to anyone here in the room who's interested in finding out more, we also do internship programs. I'm not sure about Leo and Yoav, but there's always the possibility to reach out, and we definitely embrace everyone from all different walks of life, and also backgrounds, whether it's graphic design, scientists, sculptors. It's really, really exciting to see these different worlds merge together. And that's where the digital realm is limitless. So only your creativity will stop you there.
Great. And just off the back of Paula's comments there about those online resources for Clo and so on, there are also free online resources for Unity and Unreal if you want to work in game engine technologies and take those 3D assets and animate them and put them into virtual worlds. I've got another question here. What do you love most about digital fashion, and what is the most annoying part of being a digital fashion designer? again, anyone that wants to take that, please jump in.
I think what I love most about it is the freedom that it gives you to imagine. I feel like as creatives, we all try to do that in every medium, even in physical fashion. I think that's very exciting when you see designers who are able to create something that feels like it's out of this world, like someone said previously. I think it's challenging. The challenging part of digital fashion right now is kind of like, it comes also from the question previously. I think the level of accessibility, it's not as easy as just buying something, sending it over. I feel like it requires a bit more of a mental jump for some people to get there and have like emotional connection to a product or to a garment that they may want.
Okay. And then I've got another question here. Have you considered a VR experience with haptics, with a sensation on your body as if the garment was on you and actually growing? I'm guessing that's aimed at Ouroboros.
Yeah, it's something that we're working on at the moment. We have some really, really exciting projects and pieces coming out this year. So we definitely invite everyone to watch the space, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our mailing list. And yeah, in the meantime, please obviously feel free to try on our headpiece that we've put in the chat. But yeah, very, very interested in haptic suits and VR experiences as well. It's all coming.
Excellent. Sounds exciting. The next question here, will the garments work with your body in virtual real time? I might jump in on this one, if that's okay by the rest of the panel. So I guess that means for virtual try on, and so, you know, in video, but also in kind of real life. Getting something to a digital asset to map your body in real time is a very tricky proposition. Requires a lot of skeletal mapping of the human body in real time, and then layering that digital asset and kind of cloth simulation at the same time. It's a lot of computational power. The biggest roadblock to doing that through devices like a mobile phone or a tablet is the computational power within that device is quite limited. So you can't actually do that in real time currently. However, with the advent of 5G and the ability to transfer mass amounts of data very quickly to a number of devices and up into the cloud, you can have off-device computing so that you can then map things in real time to a body. It's still at the formative stages. There are a few people trying it, and it's kind of fairly rudimentary, to be honest, when it gets to kind of moving bodies, but it is progressing very, very quickly. And if you watch this space, hopefully within a couple of years, we'll have something more promising to show on that front. I don't know if anyone else from the panel wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah, actually, we have some really exciting news on that front. We will soon be bringing out real-time working garments experiences, and that will also be happening towards probably the end of this year, if not next year. And we'll be collaborating with a very, very talented technology company. As you've just said, obviously, it all depends a little bit on the hardware that you have as well. So we'll be using mostly LiDAR technology in order for that to work. But we've got something coming soon on this front. So definitely very, very exciting space.
Excellent, sounds great. Okay, so I've got another question. Why are these clothes just for your generation or Gen Z or millennials? What about those who cannot enjoy or make use of conventional fashion due to physical restrictions and disabilities?
Yeah, so sorry, I think I responded to that in the chat already. I think that's a really great question. Thank you for flagging that up if we didn't specify. It's not at all that we're just for one generation. In fact, we've seen so much excitement from older generations to ours. It's just that we speak for Gen Z because this is our experience so far. But yeah, it's been fantastic working with people who have different bodies, including my own as well. So definitely welcome everyone, and also obviously different walks of life, and even, you know, less locations, as Elisa was saying, that are not as accessible to fashion classically. That's what our digital fashion really is there for. So we can tailor the garments to any body, any size, shape, age. It's really, really open for all. It's very important that we say that.
Great. And then I think this might be the final question from the audience. Is there anything in the works for hologram development so customers can come into a space and have a different immersive experience with the garments? Again, I might jump in on this one just to begin with. So that's essentially augmented reality of digital assets. That's very possible now. There are a number of platforms to do that on, and a number of kind of devices that would enable you to do that. Going back to my earlier comment about doing that in real time to map a body. As I say, in the physical world, it's quite tricky with the hardware limitations and so on. Doing that virtually in a virtual world is very easy. Real-time simulation of cloth on a machine and in a virtual environment is very, very possible at the moment. And then doing that in the real world with augmented reality is something that's, you know, you can augment assets into the physical world now. Animating them is also possible. Mapping them to the body is something that requires work, and as Paula mentioned, LiDAR is a good option for that.